The students cannot use the approach of reading from cover to cover. Cover to cover reading is not a good approach. You'll have to be very selective in reading certain things based on your syllabus, based on your previous year questions analysis. You'll have to do that. Out of 100 questions that is going to be in the prelims examination, you can expect 15 questions. And if you prepare well, there is a possibility you can get 80 to 90% of the questions right, especially for polity. As I already said, there are only very few subjects which has application in all the three phases of your examination, and polity and governance is one such area. Though you may refer to the multiple books or multiple sources for a particular topic, but your final notes has to be consolidated. That's very, very important. That's why I said that the book, the Lakshmikant book, is not designed per se to help you to answer the mains examination. Presentation of the ideas in your own words will come only when you know how to make notes. And when you make notes, it becomes easy for your presentation. If you are someone who has already got some knowledge in the polity, you can go and read the previous year questions. But for a beginner, reading the previous year questions will not help much. So it is going to be tough for the first 6 months. But if you hold your confidence, if you are determined that you wanted to go through this particular journey, after 6 months, you'll start enjoying the process. You will understand that day by day you are moving towards success. This is a session just to give an idea as to how you can prepare for polity and governance, especially for the beginners who wanted to prepare for UPSC examination. So before that, let me give an introduction. Some of the students might know me already, but for the students who are not aware of me, I'm Babu Gunashekaran, and I have already cleared this examination 3 times. In CSE 2013, again in CSE 2016, and again in CSE 2017. All right. Not just have cleared the examination, I have been in the preparation for almost preparation and then of course teaching. It is now almost more than 15, 16 years, rather 17 years since I've started my journey in UPSC. So that's the overall experience. But I have been specializing myself in the area of polity and governance. All right. So I'll just take you through the strategy, especially for the beginners, as to how you can prepare for this examination. Okay, so to understand the importance of this particular subject, that's first you'll have to understand what is the importance of this particular subject, polity and governance. Strictly from the point of view of examination, of course, apart from the examination, you do have a lot of other benefits, having a general awareness about the entire Indian political system, and also as to understanding the various institutions in our country. That is going to be an advantage for all of you. But from strictly from the point of view of what and to what extent this can help you in the examination process. So the first thing you should know is in the preliminary examination, I'm going by a very least minimal estimate. I'm not just giving the maximum estimate. It is a minimum estimate. That minimum you can expect 15 multiple choice questions out of 100 questions that is going to be in the prelims examination, your GS paper 4, which matters for the qualifying the prelims. You can expect 15 questions. And if you prepare well, there is a possibility you can get 80 to 90% of the questions right, especially from polity. 1 or 2 questions are likely to come from areas like governance as well. So it can go up to 17 to 18 questions, but I'm putting a minimum estimate of what is called as 15 questions. That is approximately 1/6 of your questions is going to be from this particular subject in your prelims examination. That is approximately 30 marks. And you see the cutoff is roughly somewhere between 80 to 90 marks in the last 10 years. So therefore, in terms of cutoff, it is almost around 1/4 or maybe even 1/3 of your marks can be scored from this particular area itself, if you do it properly. So that's the relevance for the prelims examination. And if you see the mains examination, it is again relevant for the mains examination. The entire GS paper 2 consists of polity, governance, and a bit of social justice and a bit of international relations. So overall, out of the 250 marks, if you see 125 marks is asked from the polity part itself. Polity part, which includes the historical background based on which the Indian Constitution has been drafted, the various salient features in the Indian Constitution, the federal structure in the Indian Constitution, the various constitutional bodies under the Indian Constitution, the different organs of the state, the legislature, the executive, judiciary, and of course, comparison of Indian Constitution across the world, the local bodies. So primarily, these are the topics. Around 7 to 8 major themes are there, and that is where UPSC does ask a lot of questions repeatedly again and again. And how much marks you get? 125 marks for your mains examination. That's only from the polity. And of course, from the governance area, you get another 30 to 40 marks. Governance is basically what the government does, how it make policies, how it implements the policies. What are the various tools of transparency and accountability? What is e-governance? What is civil service? What is the role of civil service? What are the challenges in civil service? What kind of reforms has to be brought in civil service? So these are all few themes that is given, and from that area also around 3 to 4 questions do come, so 30 to 40 marks. So overall, if you see out of 250 marks, here itself you are going to get around 160 to 165 marks is from this area. Therefore, your two-third of the marks of the GS paper 2 is to be going from polity and governance. But the most important thing is, I would say, that how this subject also helps you in your interview. I'm sure that you know that your interview is also for 275 marks, which can never be underestimated, because interview is an area where it can give a push for your selection. So the 275 marks of your interview, you are going to be assessed on your personality, and your personality will be assessed based upon your understanding of our legal system, understanding of our constitutional values. A lot of opinionated questions may be asked from the students, and those opinionated questions can be answered well, provided you understand the value system in the constitution, you understand the philosophy behind the various laws. Your general answers has to be backed by all those things. That is also going to help you to get the best marks in the examination. All right, so that's what basically you'll have to understand with regard to the relevance of this particular subject in a very brief. I'm not just extrapolating and making it a very broad discussion, but your this subject, polity and governance, is going to come across through all the phases of the examination. There are only very few subjects which have application in all the stages, and polity and governance is one such subject. All right, so as I already said, there are only very few subjects which has application in all the three phases of your examination, and polity and governance is one such area. Now, this is the importance of the subject. Moving forward, what are the sources? Let us try to keep the sources again very, very minimal. This is an area where students do have a lot of doubt as to what is the source that I follow. So try to be very keen in listening to this. And I'll just make the discussion very brief. And in the end, I'll take up your Q&A session as well. And in the Q&A session, I'll just take up all your doubts. So if you see the sources, so for a beginner, so whoever is a beginner and who has no knowledge, say let us assume in Indian polity, there are few students who already done their graduation and post-graduation before they come to the UPSC, but someone who is a beginner and who doesn't have any knowledge, probably I would suggest you to go through this NCERT book, Our Constitution at Work, 11th class NCERT, which gives a fundamental knowledge about the Indian Constitution, about the entire political system in our country. So basically, what is polity? Polity is nothing but the study of our political system, and our political system is laid down in the Constitution of India. So our Indian Constitution at Work is a very wonderful book, a very simple, it is written in a very simple language. It tries to give you the idea behind the philosophies in the Indian Constitution, the various organs of the state, the legislature, the executive, the judiciary. You understand some constitutional bodies like Election Commission. You understand some of the bodies like local bodies, panchayat and municipalities. So it gives a very basic idea. But that basic idea is not sufficient for you to go through the UPSC examination. But that basic idea will make you familiar with certain key terms. That basic idea will make you familiar with the structure of the Indian Constitution. That basic idea will make you familiar with the concepts like fundamental rights, fundamental duties, and all those things. So in case if you're looking for the preparation, I would suggest that you can go through this book once. It is not going to take you much time. If you're already a graduate, it will take 10 to 15 days at the maximum, even if you read it at a very slow pace. All right. So that you do. And then in addition to that, you can go through one standard books, any standard book for that particular matter. The most popular book is the Indian Polity by Lakshmikant. that can be used as a reference book. It does has a lot of information. Not everything is relevant. Or you can go with what is called as D.D. Basu, Indian Constitution by D.D. Basu. That's a wonderful book. But the standard of the book is little higher. So students, those who not got any knowledge in Indian polity, I would suggest not to directly read this book. First, go through the our constitution at work, and then probably you can read any of these standard books. And then the third important thing is that it is not that you can always rely on the book. So once you rely on the book, then you should take your own notes as well. And that notes should be a very crisp note, which means how crisp it is up to you. But it should be a crisp note. And what should be the parameter defining your notes? The parameter that should define your note is that you should be in a position to understand them later. It should be as crisp as possible, that but it should not be in such a way that you yourself do not understand what you have written. So it is basically for your reference, it is basically for your revision. So the notes are there. And then these are the three things probably. If you're part of any proper foundational courses, so the notes may be provided there. So there also notes you can use it. Otherwise, you can make use of your own notes. So when it comes to polity, you start with NCERT. Suppose if you have no foundational knowledge, then any of the standard book that I said, you can follow that. Then you can make your own notes. And then, of course, you'll have to keep your notes, get it updated on a regular basis. And then there is something which is called as governance. So for governance, I wouldn't suggest that you have to read a basic book, because governance is not something which is academic study, but governance is more of a practical application. Governance is what the government does. Governance is basically about how the laws are made, how they are getting implemented, how the policies are formulated. How do we make the system more transparent, accountable? How do we make the people to participate in the system of governance? How e-governance today plays a very important role in providing effective service delivery to the people. So this is a more of a practical aspect. So practical aspect requires you to probably understand what is given in the syllabus, and using the syllabus you can just make little bit of research, and then accordingly you can prepare the notes. Now I do understand for a beginner it looks a very long thing, but as and when you get into the process of your preparation, you will understand how to do all those things. All right, so for governance it should be your own notes with a lot of examples from the current affairs that is going to approach. All right, and in addition to all those things, this is what is going to help you in your success. So I would say these are the three core pillars that is going to define your success in UPSC. First is conceptual understanding. What do you mean by conceptual understanding? Okay, Indian Constitution is there, which is what is the polity part. So I'll try to understand the Indian polity. Okay, one more thing. In polity, if you want, you can also take a Bare Act. So Bare Act is basically what is called as that it exactly reproduces what is there in the Indian Constitution. So that can also help you. You can keep it as a reference material, Bare Act, in addition to your NCERT book, and then any of the standard book, your notes, and probably you can keep a Bare Act as well. So first thing is basically the conceptual understanding. You're going to understand the concepts. So read, try to understand the concept, take your time. So first is the concept building. So without concept building, nothing is going to happen. All right. I'll take up all the questions one by one, but first let me give the presentation. So first is conceptual understanding. Try to build the concepts. So the concept can be done by self-reading. If you're part of any foundation program, it can be done from the foundation classes. So first, concept building. So without concept building, nothing is going to happen. All right. Second, is the consolidation and updation of notes. So whenever you read a particular area, try to understand that area. Try to completely understand that particular area and try to make a notes in the own way that you can understand. But however, after the understanding is done, then only you should start taking the notes, so that you can make the notes in a way that you will understand. So why these notes will help you? How it is going to help you? Because when it goes to the mains examination, you will have to write answers. When you have to write answers, you cannot merely reproduce what is there in the books. You cannot reproduce in the same 100 words or same 200 words, or you cannot reproduce the same paragraph as probably you might have done, probably in your schools or probably in your colleges. But now in UPSC, what is going to help is the presentation of the idea in your own words. So that presentation of the ideas in your own words will come only when you know how to make notes. And when you make notes, it becomes easy for your presentation. So I personally share my experience how I was able to clear the examination 3 times is because I had notes for most of the topics that is given in the syllabus. Now, once I have the notes, very pinpointed, very specific, very simple, very brief notes. So that helped me to retain that information well. That helped me to present the information more effectively as an answer. Okay. So first is concept building. And once you build the concept for a particular topic, then you'll have to make note making. And note making is not just mere note making, it is a consolidation of note making. So, for example, sometimes you may refer to multiple sources for a particular topic. But though you may refer to the multiple books or multiple sources for a particular topic, but your final notes has to be consolidated. That's very, very important. So your final notes has to be consolidated and kept in one particular place. So consolidation becomes very important because as the last moment before you go to the examination, most of the issue that the students face is probably they're not able to look for the multiple sources again to revise it. So you try to consolidate that and keep it updated. When I say keep it updated, so for example, for certain topic, understanding the basics is also important, but to the basic topic, some current developments may also happen. So for example, when you talk of fundamental rights in the Indian Constitution, from the Constitution, we'll read the basic concepts. But related to that fundamental right, some current updates, some Supreme Court judgments might have come during the course of your preparation. So you try to consolidate that, you try to update that with that. So you bring it in one place. So in this way, consolidate your notes and keep it updating through the process of the preparation. So conceptual understanding, consolidation, and updation of the notes. And then the most important thing, which most of the students fail, and those students who do it, they become really successful, is a periodic revision of the notes. Now, what do you mean by periodic revision? It is not that the first month you have made the notes and then after that you have never touched it. Then the human mind cannot remember that. Our mind has a very limited memory capacity. And that too, our short-term memory is very, very less. Unless and until you process that information very well and take it to your long-term memory, you are not in a position to retain that information for a long time. And to take that information processed and take that information into a long-term memory is what requires a periodic revision, a sustained revision, a periodic revision plan. So when you do that, automatically it will take the information to the long-term memory. So it is not only about periodic revision. What is also very important, apart from periodic revision, is that a lot of practice question is also very, very important. Now, what do you mean by practice question? So when I say practicing question is that whenever you prepare a particular topic and then you make a notes on that particular topic, you'll have to go back to the previous year UPSC questions. You go to previous year UPSC questions. I would say if it is a prelims examination, you should solve minimum 20 to 25 years of previous year questions for every topic. If it is a mains examination, you should do at least last 5 years of previous year questions. Because I would say why the mains question last 5 years is sufficient, because the mains today are more dynamic. They keep on changing the trend every 5 years. But prelims still a more static thing, at least when it comes to polity, a more static thing. Most of the questions are likely to come from the Indian Constitution only. So therefore, for prelims, once you do last 25 years of questions, and for the mains, once you see the last 5 years of questions, and then if you are confident, comfortable that you have the content for these questions, then your success is very, very higher. This is what, of course, you'll have to do for both polity and governance. Of course, when it comes to polity, so polity is both relevant for prelims and mains, but governance is largely to the mains only, although 1 or 2 current-based questions can come from governance also in the prelims examination. So what are the key pillars of your success? One is conceptual understanding, then what is called as consolidation and the regular updation of your notes. And of course, the most important thing is periodic revision as well as the practice of the previous year questions. So once you combine all the three pillars, I'm quite sure that you are closing towards what is called a success. Yes, apart from that, you'll have to take care of other things as well. But these are the basic things that you should first follow. And that will definitely take you towards what is called as the success. Now, this is what I wanted to present. So from where you have to start? You'll have to start from NCRT. That is our constitution at work if you do not have any foundational knowledge. And then, of course, if you join a foundation program, you can follow the CLATS notes as well. So that is also going to help you in building the conceptual clarity. So these are the things that you'll have to follow up. So this is what basically I have to provide. And of course, a lot of minor nuances will be there that, of course, once you get into the process, you yourself will come to know about all those things. Or you can anyways reach out to us or any of our team and you can start knowing about all those things. All right, now I'll just look into the questions. I'll just look into the questions and try to answer the questions one by one. Just give me a moment. Okay, so there's one question. Should short notes be made from the standard book or from the foundation? Okay, should short note be made from the standard book or the foundation? So if you're part of the foundation course, then of course, yes, the foundation course itself will take care of most of the things. But once you take the notes from the foundation course, you can keep the standard books as a reference material. And if you feel anything extra is there, if you feel something is relevant is there, then you can use it as a reference. And from there also you can add up. That is what I said, that there should be a consolidation of your notes. So if you're part of the foundation in LevelUp, mostly the course itself will cover those things. But of course, you can keep a reference material, and that reference material can be used to add up certain things if it is relevant. All right. So second question is, sir, can you please brief about the BAR Act? Now, what is BAR Act? BAR Act is that just the Indian Constitution, whatever is given in the Indian Constitution, it is reproduced in certain other text, and that's basically what is called as BAR Act. So it contains all the articles, all the schedules of the Indian Constitution. So they will just produce the text of the Constitution. There is no explanation to those things. If you read the books and all those things, there are some explanation that is given. The interpretation of those articles are explained. But a BAR Act is merely the Indian Constitution text is just reproduced. So you can keep it handy. That is also going to help you because UPSC largely focuses upon the constitution only. So therefore, if you read a BAR Act once, it will also help you to understand the different articles, where it is given. You'll try to understand the structure. So you can keep one, although you don't have to read it completely, but you can keep one for a reference. So that is going to help you. Sir, Lakshmikant with Hindu is enough. Okay. Any one book, either you can go for DD Basu or you can go for Lakshmikant. And then probably newspaper. Newspaper, if you read The Hindu, I would suggest The Hindu and selective reading of Indian Express will help you. So you don't have to read all the papers. If you're following one paper, follow it, The Hindu. But in addition to that, you can do the selective reading of Indian Express. Especially there are sections like the explained section in the Indian Express. The explained section comes, I think, in a specific days in a week. So you can read those particular sections. That could be very good, especially when something related to polity, something related to governance is explained. You can follow those things. All right, that would be sufficient. Sir, please tell us the process of revision for the beginners on a daily basis. Okay, what is this process of revision? How you have to plan for your revision schedule. This is very important. Now, what the students do is that they make the notes on a daily basis. Then for 1 month, they do not make any revision. That is not going to help. Whatever note that you make today, you will have to revise it on a daily basis. Suppose today you are attending the class or today you are making a note. Then tomorrow you are attending the class, tomorrow you are making a note. So in the second day when you make the note, you should already revise the first day notes. Second day when you make the note, then when you second day after you complete the notes, then you should have revised the first day notes. And then when you go to the third day, you should have revised first 2 days notes. So in that way, on a successive day, every day you will have to keep revising the notes again and again so that it gets into what is called as long-term memory. All right. Sir, what about NCRT from 6th? So NCRT from 6th is not very important because whatever is given in 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, they're all consolidated again in the 11th class NCRT. So therefore, you can directly go to 11th class NCRT. You try to read 11th class NCRT, But despite that, if you feel that the language is little difficult for you to understand, then you can go to the previous NCERT. But I don't feel so. Anyone who's a graduate, anyone who's already in the college, it's not very difficult for them to understand the 11th class NCERT. It is already given in a very self-explanatory language, so you can directly go for the 11th class NCERT. Okay, Shaurya Singh has asked a lot of questions. Okay, the first question is how to incorporate the PYQs in notes. How to incorporate the PYQs in notes? If you see how to incorporate the PYQs in notes, to incorporate the PYQs in the notes, first of all, you'll have to cover the entire theme. So without covering the entire theme, you cannot go for the PYQs in the first place. So for example, I would say entire theme. So let us assume fundamental rights. Fundamental rights is an entire theme. So you'll have to cover the entire fundamental rights. So once you cover the entire fundamental rights, you have made the notes for the entire fundamental rights. Then what you'll have to do is you'll have to go for the last 5 years of previous year questions for the mains examination. And you see that what are the questions that has come from the fundamental rights. And then once you segregate the last 5 years of questions, maybe around 10-15 questions may be there the last 5 years. So you see that how many questions you are able to answer from whatever notes you already prepared. So for whatever questions you are able to answer, it's okay. But for whatever question you are not able to answer, then try to prepare the content for those questions. So once you prepare content for those questions, then in that particular way, now your content is ready for the static fundamental rights as well, whatever you prepared, and your content is also ready for the questions. So in this way, you will have the complete content. So then you are ready for that particular area. So you don't have to go beyond the last 5 years. Just focus on the last 5 years. So then you are ready. So this is the way that you'll have to prepare the content. Should the notes be same for the prelims and mains, or handwritten notes just for the mains and annotations in Lakshmikant for the prelims? All right. So this is again for the individuals. From individual to individual, it may vary. So I am someone who always believed in the handwritten notes, and those handwritten notes have helped me very much. So if you have a lot of time, and if you are someone who's a pen and paper person, I would suggest a handwritten notes for everything. But if you are a person who's a little advanced, even the digital notes can help you, or you can just mark it from the book for your prelims. So you can go for the prelims. But however, for the mains examination, strictly I would recommend to go for what is called as handwritten notes, or at least in a digital version, you'll have to write it. So that is going to be a good thing when it comes to the mains examination. All right. I have recently started with Polity and GS paper 2 and don't have notes ready. How to add points from the newspapers or value additions? Okay. I would say it is not that you'll have to keep adding notes from the newspaper and value additions. That is not a good approach in my opinion. Why? Because when you keep adding notes from the newspaper and the value additions, day by day, minor upgradations will happen. So I do not know how effective it may be. If you want, you can do it, but I do not know how effective it is going to be. The best way to prepare the notes is theme-based notes. So for example, what you'll have to do is you'll have to cover a particular topic. Take a UPSC topic, which is given in the syllabus. First, try to cover conventionally all the knowledge revolving around it. Then try to see what are the current developments in that particular topic till this point of time. In the last 6 months, you can just Google it and you can find what are the last 6 months development up till this particular date on this particular area. Suppose you take the example of center-state relationship. First, you cover the conventional area of center-state relationship. That will be anyways covered in the class, or you can do it on your own also. After having a conventional knowledge, see that this is the moment I'm preparing the last 6 months. You see that what are the things that has happened in the center-state relationship. What are the issues between the central government and the state government? What are the issues in terms of lawmaking? What are the issues in terms of financial relationship? Then you try to take the notes for everything. On a day-to-day basis, it will be a very marginal development. And that for that marginal development, you'll have to spend a lot of time. So in that way, a lot of time gets actually wasted. So though it appears that you spend a lot of time, like 1 hour, 2 hours you put on every day, but the outcome of that, the result of that is not very effective. But once you cover the entire theme, and then for the 6 months, if you do, probably you'll have to spend, say, probably around 20 to 25 hours for that entire thing. And that gives an holistic idea of what has happened. But however, to do this, first you should have a good conventional knowledge. So therefore, first you should focus on building your base, that is a conventional knowledge. Once you build your base, then it becomes easier for you to build on that. All right. So that's what personally I followed, and I'm just mentoring many of the students to follow that as well. And I think that is quite benefiting them. So you can try that way, which can also help you as well. All right, the next question is revision strategy specifically for polity. So the same thing. What is the revision strategy for polity? It should be periodic. So for many students, they are not able to do the revision properly because it is not periodic in nature. So the moment you put it periodic, even when you're doing the other subjects, even if you've completed the preparation polity, when you're doing the other subjects, you should at least have a revision plan. You should not just completely leave the subject for months together. So therefore, then it looks little blank. Then sometimes the students start panicking. A periodic revision schedule is what is required, nothing more than that. All right. So I'm taking the foundation course. They are covering the polity nicely, but the handouts are bulky and not in the same order as Lakshmikant are given in the UPSC syllabus. How do I complete the various sources of my own notes? Will the notes become too bulky and take a lot of time to write? Okay. So it is not necessary that it has to be followed in the same order in the Lakshmikant, because sometimes the teacher might do it as per the UPSC requirement. So therefore, you don't have to worry whether it should be in the same order as that of the Lakshmikant. All that it is required before you go to the examination is that you should have a notes for each and every topic in the syllabus. So therefore, that order is not important. The order maybe is followed because for the teaching purpose, some sequence has to be followed. So according to that, they have to follow it. If you feel that everything is covered in the foundation, that is well and good. If you feel that apart from that notes are too bulky, use your notes only as a use your the notes that is given in the classes, not the handwritten notes. Suppose any material is given in the classes as a reference material. You don't have to read everything. You can just go through it once. Only the relevant things you can add it. Otherwise, you don't have to have your notes also again go through it multiple times, again and again, whatever is the material that is given. Whatever is you think has to be added, only those things you take. So that would suffice. All right. So the only thing that you have to make sure is whether all the topic in the syllabus has been covered or not. Once all the topic in the syllabus, keep your syllabus handy. See, for every syllabus, the notes are covered. For every syllabus, there is a topic that is covered. And then for those topics which is given in the syllabus, see the last 5 years of previous year questions. Am I able to answer those questions? If you're able to answer, then the job is done. If you're not able to answer, try to update on those areas with relevant content. Then your job is done. I went through the main GS to PYQs and they seem to be very specific and very few questions were to the point. How would you be able to reach that level of analysis with only preparing every topic given? So you don't have to worry about that, because see, understand, if you see UPSC question paper, UPSC is not expecting you to get 200 marks out of 250 marks. Even if you get a 50% score, that is going to be a very good score. And the questions are asked very difficult. So therefore, UPSC mark standard itself will be 5 to 6%, 5 to 6 marks out of it's a 50% is considered to be a very good and excellent score. Therefore, the only thing that you have to keep in your mind is that you should not leave out a lot of questions. You should not be in a position that you are not aware of most of the questions. Even if you have a little bit of knowledge, you should be in a position to write it. I'm not saying that is going to happen to all the questions. Out of 20 questions, probably 13 to 14 questions, you should write it well. 5 to 6 questions, you may not have a good idea, but 2 to 3 questions, you'll have a rough idea. You attend it. And certain questions, 1 or 2 questions, you'll have a very fair knowledge, write it. 1 or 2 questions, you may not have an awareness, probably no issues. Nobody can answer all the 20 out of 20 questions well. It is only that we should try to maximize our potential. That can be easily taken care by going through the entire syllabus and also by going through the last 5 years of previous year questions. All right. So that is going to help you to sail you through. Please tell all the aspects that should be covered in the notes for mains and how to mains focus notes for the mains, if not in the foundational course. What are all the aspects? What are all the aspects? The aspects are basically the keywords in the syllabus. From whatever is given in the syllabus, first you'll have to prepare the notes, which will anyways be covered wherever if you're part of your foundational program or yourself, you can do it. And then the dimensions basically will come from what are the various questions that has been asked from UPSC. So what are the various questions that has been asked from a particular topic? Say, for example, from the fundamental rights, sometimes UPSC asks question from Article 21, environmental rights. The UPSC syllabus does not specifically give you about the environmental rights. It only talks about the fundamental rights. It only talks about the salient features, and fundamental right is a salient feature. But UPSC asks question from the environmental rights. UPSC asks from right to privacy. Now, these are the various dimensions which is expanding. So, how do you get different dimensions? Is by focusing upon the previous year questions. So, in the previous year question, if any dimension is asked, that dimension should be covered. And once you have got an idea, okay, this dimension has asked me in UPSC. If new dimension is there in the current affairs, then that is a hint that UPSC may also ask such questions. Previous year they asked such questions, so in the coming year also they can ask such questions. So you should be proactive in covering those dimensions as well. So basically, for the keyword you prepare and then you refer to UPSC. So in that keyword, any extra dimensions are asked as a question, you prepare that area. So based on your experience of previous year questions in the current year, some current development is happening on a similar level, you also prepare that. Then your possibility is that 90-95% of the questions can be answered effectively if you follow this particular approach. So how to make notes from the standard book? So how to make the standards from the how to make notes from the standard book? Very simple. You read it and don't just copy it. I don't just copy it. You read it, just think it that in which way you will write it. So if you read a particular page, you then just try to see, I have to remember the entire content in this particular page, but I should write it in my own way so that I remember it. But all the content, the important content probably that I should remember. So that is what is note making. What is a art of note making? Art of note making is not merely copying what is given in the book. You just read it, you process that information in your own way, and then put it in the pages in the way that you can understand. So that is how you'll have to do it. Where do I get a Bar Act? You will get it in any bookshop. You can just go to any UPSC bookshop. You ask Polity Bar Act, you will get it. Okay, Indian Constitution Bar Act, you will get that. Or you can order it online also. You can go to Amazon, wherever it is. You can just put Indian Constitution Bar Act, you will get that. Okay, for the beginners, if I say that right now that what are the topics that is not relevant in Lakshmikant for UPSC, you will not understand that. Especially a lot of new chapters has been added in the end. A lot of new chapters which may not be of much relevance. So those things are not relevant. But right now you don't have to worry about it. As and when you go through the preparation process, you will understand that you can at least avoid 1/4 of the book, which is of not relevant to the UPSC examination. And also, this is very important for the students. Again, the students cannot use the approach of reading from cover to cover. Cover to cover reading is not a good approach. You'll have to be very selective in reading certain things based on your syllabus, based on your previous year questions analysis. You'll have to do that. Okay, that is one important thing that you have to understand. One student has asked that after reading Lakshmikant, the student is comfortable in solving the prelims, but not the mains examination. That's why I said that the book, the Lakshmikant book, is not designed per se to help you to answer the mains examination, or the examination standard is evolving over a period of time. So therefore, how we'll be in a position to answer the mains examination is only when you prepare your notes, and then with that notes, try to see whether you are able to solve the previous year questions. If you're not able to solve the previous year questions, then somewhere you'll have to update your notes according to the question. For the question, you can make some research. If you're, of course, doing the self-study, I'm telling that. So based on the questions from a particular topic, you try to research for those questions. And when you research for those questions, the content will come from multiple dimensions. On those dimensions, you prepare your notes and keep that consolidating your notes. And that will help you in preparing for your mains examination. Relying solely on the Lakshmikant book will not help you. So that is why the analysis of the previous year questions becomes very, very important. So as a beginner, how many pages or how many chapters should I read? There is no hard and fast rule. The only thing that you have to keep in your mind is what is your goal when you wanted to give the prelims examination, and also how much time you have at hand. So those things are very important. But one thing that you should keep in your mind is covering number of chapters should not be a target. But whatever you cover, you should consolidate that. Whatever you cover, you should have a good understanding of that. Suppose you cover 10 chapters a day, or may let us assume 4 chapters a day, but without understanding most of the things, it is not going to be fruitful. So how many chapters a day? I cannot say that because the individual differences are there. But how you should cover is very important. Whenever you cover a particular area, you should be rock solid in that particular area. You should consolidate that particular area. You should revise that particular area before moving to the next area. So in this way, you should go. Even if you go slowly, you should be very steady in those things. Yes, Himanshu is asking that he has done a selective study. Yes, selective study is okay. but make sure that your selective study is not missing out on something which is very important. Of course, you can leave out the peripheral areas. A lot of peripheral topics are given. You can leave out those areas, but make sure that you're not leaving out on the important topics that will come by experience, or you can reach out to any good mentors who can guide you on this. Okay. The next is first, should we go through previous year quiz and start reading after? Okay, so first, should we go through the previous year questions or start reading, or after reading we go through the previous year questions? If you are someone who has already got some knowledge in the polity, you can go and read the previous year questions. But for a beginner, reading the previous year questions will not help much. For a beginner, first they have to do their basics. They have to do the polity, our constitution at work. Then you'll have to read a basic book. Then only you can analyze the previous year questions. So directly analyzing will not help if you do not have a knowledge. If you're already someone who has done a graduation or a post graduation, probably then you are in a position to go through the previous year questions and see what type of questions are coming and accordingly plan a strategy. But I think 90% of the students may not fall under that particular category. So therefore, I will say first do your basics. It will take the time. First do your basics and then go to the analysis of previous year questions, and then accordingly you keep updating your notes. When is the best time to start answer writing? The best time to start answer writing is the moment you start for the preparation. When I say the moment you start for the preparation, suppose even if you want to give your preparations 2027 and you are giving it right now, you are starting the preparation right now, let us assume in January 2026, or you want to give your attempt in 2028, but you are starting in January 2026, immediately whenever you cover a particular topic, a very basic question you should start writing. It can be a very simple question. It can be even a question of, say, let us assume a college level question or even a school level question. But start writing subjective answers. So if you ask me when to start writing, it is as soon as possible. How to write answers? First write. First write, don't worry about it. May not be a very good answer immediately, but gradually it will improve. So what is the thing that you have to keep in your mind when you start writing the answer? The first thing that you should keep in your mind while starting the answers, writing answers, is that you'll have to address the demand in the question, nothing more than that. Just try to address what are the important areas that is asked in the question, what is the question is focusing upon. Rather than what happens with most of the students is that don't worry about the structure, presentation, all those things at the initial stages. Those are all the things that will come. That has to be taken care. I'm not ruling out the importance of those things. But initially, what matters is the content. Initially, whether you are able to express your ideas, whether you are able to express your knowledge, then comes the other value additions. So what is the problem with most of the students is most of the students, they are writing whatever they know rather than whatever is demanded in the question. So the first thing that you have to focus upon is whether I am writing whatever I know or whether I'm trying to address what is asked in the question. So many times the students may know the answer, but they're not in a position to write as if it is asked in the question. Rather than writing as if what is asked in the question, they write whatever they know in the way that they prepared. So you may be prepared in a particular way, or your teacher might have taught you in a particular way because that is how it can be taught. But the question can be asked in an applied manner. The question can be asked in an indirect manner. So you should learn that art of presenting the same information in the way that it is demanded in the question. That's the first thing that you have to keep in your mind. Therefore, when should you should write answer as early as possible? Maybe from the very first day, maybe from the very second day, maybe from the very first week. Start writing the answer. I do understand very first week your answers cannot be very qualitative, or you are not in a position to answer a UPSC standard question. But I'm not telling you to write a UPSC standard question. I'm telling to answer, okay, a basic definition, what it is, just explain that particular concept. Suppose you read what is Indian Constitution, or suppose you read what is Constitution, what are the features of Constitution. Just write it as an answer. What is a Constitution? What are the features of the Constitution? In the very first week, you write that. So gradually your answer writing ability will improve. Okay, so this is a very, very important question. Should I go simultaneously covering 2, 3 subjects or one subject after the other subject? So generally, if you see, processing multiple information at the same time effectively is not an easy thing. So that is what I primarily feel based on my experience of more than 70 years. So simultaneously preparing 2, 3 subjects and then consolidating all the two, 3 subjects may not be an easy thing. At least to me and for most of the students, that is what I felt. So my approach has always been that one subject after the other subject, that helps you to have a confidence in completing one subject and then moving to the other subject. So normally, if you ask me, I would prefer going one subject after the other subject. Maybe in addition to GS paper, you can do one optional paper, probably. But doing optional also, doing GS also, polity also, history also, geography also at the same time, that approach may not be very effective. Then it may not help you to have that particular kind of hold over a particular subject when you do multiple subjects. So my suggestion would be to do a subject one after the other. So how do you conclude the answers? There's one question from Ankur. How do you conclude the answer? A conclusion should always be very proactive. A conclusion should always be very positive. So, for example, whenever a question is asked, the question is asked about a particular theme or about a particular issue. So you address the demand of that particular question. And then finally, whether it is asked or not asked, you can give some suggestions as to how to address this particular issue. They may not be explicitly asking it. So you can say that this is the way that we can address this, or you can give an example of this is how this solution has this issue has been already addressed. So it has to be very proactive. So in this way, the conclusion should be relevant to the answer that is asked. It should not be completely irrelevant. They are asking something, you are writing something else. So that is not a good conclusion. They are asking some issue, you have already addressed that particular issue, you have presented whatever they asked, and further you are giving a way forward. So further, these things can also be done in order to address this. In that way, you can start writing your conclusion as of now. As and when you write, you will get a lot of idea. It will get improved over a period of time. Okay, so how to prepare the notes for the governance? How to prepare the notes for the governance is try to go to the UPSC syllabus. In the UPSC syllabus, they have given certain keywords like participation, tools of transparency and accountability in the governance, citizen charter. So you put these keywords and try to have some basic definitions for all the keywords. Try to cover some basic content for all these keywords, and to what extent I'll go to the content, because there can be multiple dimensions under a particular topic. That could be little challenging for a student who's not going for a foundation course, because that student may not have the expertise as that of a teacher who is doing that for the last 15 years, 16 years. I do understand that. So in case if you're not going to the teaching coaching, then where you can stop, put a limit to that, is that you try to have some content for all the topic. Then you go through the last 10 years of UPSC questions in governance. I'm saying not 5 years, 10 years here, because you're not going for the any of the course. Then in that particular case, you can go to the last 10 years of UPSC question asked in governance. For every theme, you see in the last 10 years, how many questions has been asked and what are the dimensions these questions are asking. You try to cover these dimensions, because UPSC sometimes repeat almost the same thing in a different way. They ask indirectly the same content, only the question format is changed. So therefore, in that way, if you prepare the content for the last 10 years of questions along with the syllabus that is given in the UPSC for governance, I think you'll be ready for the examination, provided you know how to write the answer. Is there any difference between old and new NCERT? Not much difference. Suppose you do not have read the old NCERT, you are starting only with the new NCERT, you can go with the new NCERT. Otherwise, if you already read the old NCERT, you can continue with the old NCERT. Anyways, both will give you the basic knowledge. And NCERT is not sufficient for you to go for the examination. All right. So that is not sufficient. It is only going to give you very basic knowledge. So whichever you already have, you can follow with that. All right. Okay. So that's a very good question. That is, I'm sure that I can understand that every beginner will have this anxiety in their mind. How long it is going to take for you to understand? For someone who has no knowledge, someone who's coming from a background without any UPSC, who has not been brought up uh, from a UPSC family, or someone their friends and family members are part of UPSC, it is going to be little challenging for them to understand, at least for the first 6 months. For the 6 months, here and there will be some confusion. They will think that things are quite going to be easy. It may not be as easy initially for them, because you are entering into a area which you never ventured. You are entering into a territory you have no idea about it, especially was not, as I said, not brought up from an UPSC family. So it is going to be tough for the first 6 months, but if you hold your confidence, if you are determined that you wanted to go through this particular journey, after 6 months you'll start enjoying the process. You will understand that day by day you are moving towards success. So that 3 months to 6 months is going to be a testing time. And if you can withstand with your confidence, which most of the students do, so it is not a very difficult thing also. So after 6 months, yes, you'll understand the the aspects of UPSC, and then of course, then gradually you will do it. So that from the 6 months and the next 1.5 years, it is going to be a very crucial time. It takes minimum 2 years of time for any student to succeed this examination because of the huge syllabus that you have to cover. When I said 2 years, the entire preparation phase will go for 1 year, and then the entire examination process will go for another 1 year. So minimum 2 years is the time that you'll have to give for it if you are planning. Minimum 2 years is the time that you have to give for it if you are preparing, if you are planning to go for UPSC. But remember that in that the first 3 months to 6 months is going to be a stage where every day you might feel that little bit of uncertainty. Every day you may feel little confused, may feel little demotivated. Then after, I think you will be having a proper direction. All right. So this is not a session for the optional thing. For optional, if you need, we'll have a separate sessions for those things. So as of now, that we'll do with the GS only. I'm sure a lot of doubts has been addressed to the students who are part of this webinar today on polity and governance. Um, so we'll just wind up the session. I think there's one more question. I'll just take up that particular question. Sir, how can I use current affairs in the main answers? Like any example? So one example that I give, say for example, once UPSC asked a question, what do you understand by right to privacy? What are the various dimensions of right to privacy? See what the Constitution talks about. The Constitution talks about only Article 21. Article 21 does not explicitly say what is right to privacy. It is only through the Supreme Court interpretation Article 21 came in. So it is only through the current affairs we understand as to what is right to privacy, what are the various dimensions of right to privacy. So reading the current affairs, as and when the question is asked, you can incorporate those things in the mains example, mains answer. So as and when you write, you will understand about all those things. But don't think too much about the current affairs in the very beginning. As I already said, for the first 6 months, you'll not even have an idea as to what to read, what not to read. If you come from a background with no UPSC knowledge, therefore, building your base first, a strong foundation will help you to construct it further. And the strong foundation will come from the reading the conventional areas. You should be very strong in the conventional areas in polity, history, geography. Then comes the current affairs. Then only you can build on that. You cannot directly go for the current affairs. You will not be able to understand those things without having a base knowledge. So don't give too much of importance to current affairs in the very beginning itself. Current affairs is only a topping on what is called as the conventional areas. So try to build your base first, and then automatically your current affairs will come in. So I'm not saying it is not important, but directly if you approach current affairs, you'll not be in a position to understand that. Okay, so even after reading the questions are getting wrong because most of the students think that they know polity, but polity is one of the subjects far more than any of the other subjects where you'll have to understand the minute nuances. A superficial reading will will make you feel that you know it, but sometimes when you do not have the deep meaning and the interpretation of those words, so there's a possibility you will make a mistake. So one is try to be very slow while reading it, and then try to understand every minute aspect. And despite that, if you make mistakes, then take time to see why you have gone mistake. What is the mistake that you have made? What is the reason it has become a wrong thing? What you have missed out? So take time to solve those things, and from there you will learn. So making mistakes is a good thing, so that you can learn, so that you do not make mistakes in the UPSC examination. All right. So that's why I said that at least you should solve last 20 to 25 years of previous year questions. That is going to help you very well. All right. So with that, I'll wind up the session. So thank you very much for joining this particular webinar and also participating in our asking a lot of questions. And of course, we'll keep doing a lot of sessions regularly so that it can help the students. And I'm also very happy to take up all your doubts and to answer all your questions. All right. So thank you very much and all the very best for your future. Thank you.